Imagine a battle so short that it started and ended before most people even realized it was happening. But this wasn't just any conflict. It was a clash that changed the fate of an entire nation in less than an hour. How could something so quick and decisive take place? The answer lies on a small island in Africa and one man's bold ambition for power. It all began on the island of Zanzibar, off the east coast of Africa in 1896. Zanzibar was a sultanate with a long history marked by the spice and slave trade. Although it had a degree of autonomy, the influence of the British Empire was strong. The balance of power was delicate, and everything depended on the support of the current sultan. But when Sultan Hamad bin Thuwaini suddenly died, the situation shifted dramatically. After the sultan's death, his cousin, Khalid bin Bargash, seized the palace and declared himself the new sultan. Khalid believed he had the right to rule, but there was a problem. The British Empire did not approve of his rise to the throne. The British had their eye on another leader, someone more compliant and easy to control. Khalid was not that person. Without hesitation, the British decided to intervene. Within hours, they sent an ultimatum to Khalid. He had to abandon the throne by 9 a.m. on August 27, 1896, or face serious consequences. Khalid, far from backing down, fortified himself inside the royal palace. He gathered around 2,800 men. They were mostly civilians with little military experience, and the only defense they had was a handful of cannons and a few outdated machine guns. It wasn't a real army by any measure, but Khalid believed his determination and the strategic position of the palace would give him an edge. The British, however, did not waste time. They quickly mobilized 3 warships and anchored them off the coast of Zanzibar. These ships were armed with large-caliber cannons and manned by experienced crews, ready for a quick and decisive confrontation. At 9:02 a.m., British patience ran out. There was no response from Khalid, and the ultimatum expired. At that moment, the guns on the British warships opened fire. The shells hit the palace walls with devastating accuracy. Within minutes, Khalid's defenses began to crumble. The palace roof was destroyed, the walls cracked, and the building that had once been a symbol of the Sultan's power turned into a pile of smoking rubble. The battle progressed at an astonishing speed. Khalid's troops, disorganized and poorly trained, had no idea how to respond to the relentless bombardment. They tried firing back with their few cannons, but barely managed to hit the water. The British, on the other hand, kept firing without pause and with little opposition. By 9:15 a.m., less than 15 minutes after the first shot, Khalid's forces were in total disarray. The few remaining soldiers were desperately trying to flee from the palace, which by then was an inferno. However, Khalid was not willing to surrender just yet. He decided to play his last card: escape. At 9:35 a.m., when the battle had barely lasted more than 30 minutes, Khalid fled through the back door of the palace. He took refuge in the German consulate, just a few meters away from the palace. From there, he tried to negotiate his exile with the help of German diplomats, desperately seeking a way out to save his own life. Meanwhile, the British continued shelling the palace until they were sure all resistance had been crushed. By 9:40 a.m., exactly 38 minutes after the first shot, the shortest battle in history was over. Zanzibar, a sultanate that had retained some form of autonomy for centuries, was now fully under British control. The palace, once the center of the Sultan's power and local authority, was now nothing more than a smoking ruin. Khalid was declared a fugitive by the British authorities. They demanded that the Germans hand him over, but the Germans refused. In a strategic move, Khalid was secretly taken to a German ship and escaped to the city of Dar es Salaam in what is now Tanzania. He spent the rest of his life in exile, unable to return to the island he had once tried to rule. While Khalid fled, the British quickly consolidated their control over Zanzibar. They installed a new sultan on the throne, one who would follow their orders without hesitation. The new leader was Hamud bin Muhammad, a man loyal to the British, who accepted all the conditions they imposed. Khalid's brief reign had come to an abrupt end, and with it, Zanzibar's independence. Although the battle lasted less than an hour, its effects were immediate and devastating for the island. The palace, a symbol of the Sultan's power and the local government, was reduced to rubble. Over 500 people were injured or killed, nearly all on Khalid's side. The British, in contrast, suffered minimal losses. Only one sailor was injured during the skirmish. The disparity in firepower and military capacity was enormous. It was a one-sided confrontation from the beginning, yet Khalid had staked everything on his resistance. The speed with which the battle ended surprised even the British themselves. None of them expected the conflict to be resolved in a matter of minutes. The naval artillery was lethally effective, destroying all of Khalid's defensive positions in the blink of an eye. The civilians supporting the Sultan fled en masse. Some tried to fight back, but the British pressure was overwhelming. There was no time to organize a counterattack or plan a strategic retreat. By the end of that day, Zanzibar became a de facto British protectorate. The limited independence the Sultanate had enjoyed disappeared with the palace's destruction. The British wasted no time in rebuilding the structure. They turned it into a symbol of their new rule, a warning of what would happen to anyone daring to defy their authority in the region. Khalid, the man who believed he could challenge the British Empire, spent the rest of his days dreaming of what could have been. He died in 1927, far from the island he had so desperately wanted to govern. The shortest battle in history remained a footnote in the history books, but its impact was felt for decades. With just 38 minutes of fighting, this conflict became a testament to the power of modern weaponry and the British determination to maintain control at all costs. What started as a rebellion by an ambitious sultan ended in the consolidation of an empire. A brief but intense story that changed the fate of a nation in less time than it takes to prepare a cup of tea. After the battle, life in Zanzibar changed dramatically. With the new pro-British Sultan on the throne, the island's laws and customs began to be controlled directly from London. The population, which previously moved with some freedom, found itself under constant surveillance. The infrastructure was modified to meet the needs of the British Empire, and the wealth generated from the trade of spices and ivory no longer benefited the local population. Many who had served the former Sultan lost their lands and privileges, and the influence of the local aristocracy was reduced to almost nothing. The Sultanate, which was once a vibrant place of trade and culture, became just another pawn of the empire, losing its identity and independence. The local people had to adapt to a new order that would last until the mid-20th century, as foreign influence solidified and British control transformed life on the island for future generations.